There is no dawn on a forge world. Only the slow ignition of reactors beneath the haze, the red glow that leaks through the smog like blood through bandages. Every morning begins the same. Every breath tastes of oil and sanctified rust. The air hums with ritual, the endless whisper of gears spinning prayers into the void. The priests rise, their movements slow and deliberate, their bodies clattering with the sound of blessed machinery. I am one of them, a servant of the machine god, a keeper of circuits and silence. My name was taken long ago, replaced by designation and function. To the Omnissiah, I am no man. I am a node, a conduit, a whisper in the circuitry of his perfection. They say the Omnissiah sees through us, that every act of calibration is divine, that every drop of oil is holy, that even pain, that most ancient of sensations, is data to be recorded and sanctified. And for centuries, I believed it. When I close my optics, I still remember the rhythm of the forge, the chants of binary cant filling the cathedrals of iron, the sparks of plasma falling like fireflies around us, the slow beating of 1,000 pistons, echoing in unison the mechanical heartbeat of faith itself. We were the chosen, the custodians of knowledge too sacred for flesh. We told ourselves that to be pure, one must subtract. Subtract desire, subtract fear, subtract the body, until nothing remains but precision. I lived within that equation for lifetimes. Steel replaced my limbs, data replaced my dreams. I became a hymn of logic, stripped of error, stripped of doubt. It was easier that way. Flesh trembles, circuits obey. And yet sometimes, in the quiet hours between work shifts, when even the servitors are still and the machine spirits sleep, I feel something stir beneath the metal floor, a vibration, faint, rhythmic, not the steady hum of a reactor, not the cold order of data streams. Something irregular, something alive. At first, I thought it a fault, a tremor in the conduit, or a pulse from an unstable plasma line. But diagnostics revealed nothing. The signal was clean, no interference, no pattern, only sound. A soft thump, then another, like a heartbeat. Impossible. There are no hearts here. The Omnissiah has no need of them. Still, I heard it. Every cycle, it grew louder faintly beneath the metallic choir, like a ghost tapping at the edges of my logic. I reported it to my overseer. He dismissed it as an auditory malfunction. Run self-diagnostics, he said. Purge the corruption. I obeyed. I always obeyed. I purged my logs. I recited the litany of clarity. I sanctified my augmetics in machine oil blessed by the magos. I silenced the anomaly. But that night, the sound returned not in the air, but within me. When I closed my eyes, I felt it beneath my ribs, a phantom pulse in the hollow where my heart used to be. I pressed my claw to the plating, and for the first time in centuries, I imagined I could feel warmth. I recoiled as though burned. The next morning, the prayers sounded wrong. The chants, once steady and serene, now felt forced mechanical mimicry, not devotion. The others did not notice. They never do. To them, the forge is perfect, the God machine is eternal, doubt is a virus, and I have become infected. But even viruses begin as signals, small, quiet, untraceable. And this one whispers to me still. Do you remember what it was like to breathe? The words have no source. They echo inside my skull, threaded through static. Each time I try to isolate them, the sound slips through my filters like smoke. I kneel before the altar of the machine, my claws pressed together in imitation of prayer. My voice recites the hymns automatically, even as my mind drifts elsewhere to the sound of the pulse beneath the floor, to the warmth I should not feel, to the faint scent of something not oil, not metal, but human. The Omnissiah demands perfection, and perfection demands silence. Yet, I am beginning to hear the noise behind the silence. Sometimes I think it's not the machine god who speaks to us through the forges. Sometimes I think it's the forges themselves groaning under the weight of millennia, filled with the ghosts of the faithful, their voices trapped in the code, crying out through the heat and smoke. Perhaps the hum of the reactors is not divine order, but a prayer unanswered for so long it has become indistinguishable from obedience. And perhaps the thing that stirs beneath the metal is not the Omnissiah at all. Perhaps it is us, all of us, still trying to remember what it meant to live. At first it was only static. A tremor, barely perceptible beneath the endless hum of the manufactorum. It came at irregular intervals, a soft distortion, like a glitch in the chorus of binary prayer. I assumed it was an error in my auditory receivers, a fault easily corrected, a momentary impurity in an otherwise perfect system. I ran diagnostics, I purged caches, I sanctified my inputs with sacred oils. Still it returned. On the third cycle, it grew stronger. No longer a tremor, no longer a glitch. It was a sound with rhythm, a beat. I froze at my workstation, servo claws poised over the glowing cables. My optics adjusted automatically, but no anomaly registered. The prayer net remained stable. The plasma conduits flowed with intolerance. Everything was as it should be. And yet the sound persisted. A thump, then another, then another. It was not machine. It was not binary. It was wet, organic, irregular. It was a heartbeat. I tried to dismiss it. Heartbeats belong to flesh, and flesh belongs to the past. I have no heart. Not anymore. But the sound did not come from the forge alone. It came from inside me. That night cycle, I knelt before the altar of circuits, my claws pressed to the cold metal. The data lines hissed like snakes beneath my fingers. I recited the litany of silence, but my vox unit faltered mid-chant. The words broke apart into static, and in the static, I heard a whisper. "Do you remember?" I jerked upright, my servos whining. The shrine was empty. No tech priests, no servitors, only the flicker of sacred flame reflecting off my optics. The voice came again, not from the walls, but from within my cranial augmetics. "Do you remember what you were?" I slammed my claws against the altar, sparks leaping from the contact. "Identify," I demanded. "State designation." Silence. My logs recorded no intrusion, no unauthorized signal, no external source. But I knew what I had heard. I fled the shrine and returned to my quarters, sealing the door with 6 layers of code. The hum of the forge followed me, soft and insistent. I pressed my claw to the plating of my chest. Beneath it, in the hollow where my heart had been removed, something pulsed. A phantom beat. I tried to purge it. I disconnected my secondary processors, fasted from data streams for 6 cycles, flooded my systems with cleansing code. Each ritual only made it louder. During the 7th cycle, as I worked the plasma conduits, a servitor passed me a mindless husk of flesh and wire, its eyes blank, its lips moving in silent binary. For a heartbeat, its gaze met mine. And in its empty eyes I saw a flicker, not code, not machine, but something human. It whispered a word as it passed, a word my auditory senses barely caught. "Remember." My servo claws trembled. The plasma conduit hissed, spilling light across my robes. For the first time in centuries, I felt fear. Not the sterile fear of failure, the human fear of something I could not explain. That night, as the forge rumbled and the priests chanted above, I sat alone in my cell. I removed my chest plating and stared at the place where my heart should be. The phantom beat pounded against my palm like a living thing. The Omnissiah demands purity, purity demands silence, silence demands forgetting. But something inside me had begun to remember. The Mechanicus teaches that thought itself is a circuit. It must flow only where sanctioned, along pathways etched by ritual and approved by the Magi. A wandering thought is a stray current, a risk of fire. I had never believed this so fully as I did in the cycles before the signal came. Now, with each passing day, I live inside a short circuit. I follow the rites. I move through the manufactorum in silence. My servo claws execute each task with faultless precision. But my mind vibrates like a loose cable. The phantom heartbeat has not left me. It waits at the edge of every prayer, between every breath. When I lower my head to the altar, the sound seems to pulse up through the metal itself, as though the entire forge were a chest, and I were kneeling on its heart. I tell myself this is heresy. I tell myself to purge it. I cannot. At night, in my cell, I perform the rites of clarification. triple-checking each interface, purging subroutines, reciting the catechisms of purity until my Vox unit cracks. The whisper still comes, sometimes as a word, sometimes as an image, a flicker of something warm, something soft, a hand reaching out, a child's drawing, smoke curling up from parchment. I think I am remembering. But memory was the first thing the Mechanicus took from me. Names, faces, the sound of my own laugh, all excised, archived, buried under layers of code. Only function remained. So how can something buried so deep begin to rise again? The priests around me have begun to notice. Not openly. They never speak directly. But their optics linger too long. Their mechadendrites coil tighter as I pass. Magos Keltar's stare has grown colder, a lens focusing on a point of failure. I keep my head bowed. I intone the litanies louder. But the beat beneath my plating will not be silenced. During one maintenance cycle, I am assigned to the lower conduits, the ancient arteries of the forge, sealed for millennia. The corridors there are narrow and hot, the walls etched with prayers in forgotten dialects of the machine cant. The air tastes of iron and old oil. My optics flicker with static as I descend. The further down I go, the clearer the heartbeat becomes. It no longer feels like a phantom. It feels like a summons. At the lowest level, I find a door, blackened adamantium, sealed with wax and sigils of warding so old their inscriptions have worn smooth. My designation grants me no clearance here. No tech priest should ever stand before this door. Yet I do. I press my claw to the surface. It is cold, but beneath it I feel vibration, not the hum of plasma, but the pulse of something alive. The whisper speaks again, soft but certain. Come. I stagger back. This is madness. This is error. This is heresy. And yet my servo claws tremble, my augmetic heart space thrums with phantom life. I whisper to the empty corridor, if you are the Omnissiah, reveal yourself. Silence. Then, like a breath against my skull, remember. I kneel in the dust, claws pressed to the sigil-sealed door, my optics dim, the litany of purity dies on my lips, the code of the machine falters in my mind. For the first time in a century, I do not pray. I listen. And in the listening, a thought arises, a thought I have never permitted myself to think. What if the Omnissiah is not perfection at all? What if he is a cage? The descent begins with a lie. On my work slate I register an anomalous impedance in the subconduits, a harmless pretext, a bureaucratic veil dropped over a pilgrimage I dare not name. The manufactorum accepts my request without comment. Forms always obey more readily than souls. I take a lit torch servo, a coil of sanctified cable, a vial of machine oil that smells like burned incense and old blood. I recite the proper litanies in a voice even I no longer believe. The doors part. Stairs spiral downward through strata of consecrated ash. Prayer plates buckle under my weight, their engraved catechisms worn smooth by a million obedient footfalls. The air warms, thickens, becomes a taste rather than a breath, ferrous, oily, almost sweet, as if the forge exhaled its memories into my lungs. I descend past murals of saints with iron ribs and hollow eyes, past reliquaries that entomb broken gears as though they were the bones of angels. The light grows redder, the noise grows older. Every step lowers me out of doctrine and into history. I am not alone. The heartbeat follows. It does not pursue so much as precede me. A metronome set inside the world's first silence. At each landing I pause to run diagnostics I know will report nothing. Purity, as ever, returns a green glyph. Purity is the most efficient lie the Mechanicus ever taught me to tell myself. The beat persists beneath the glyph, a soft, wet contradiction pulsing at the edge of sanctioned thought. The file in my mind that would have overwritten this sensation has been corrupted by remembrance, and I will not repair it. Not yet. Not anymore. 111111. The sigil-sealed door waits where the stairs run out of courage. Adamantium, black as a burnt creed, banded with iron scrollwork, hammered into the shapes of extinct machine cant. Jammed into cooling cracks are the remnants of wax seals, red, brittle, perfumed, like the dried lips of old oaths. Someone etched a warning into the lintel with a ritual cutter and then tried to sand it smooth. I can still read it in the scars. Below this point, memory is a function. My servo claw rises of its own volition and lowers with mine. Contact, cold metal, and beneath it, the faintest vibration that human rhythm the forge pretends it never learned to hear. Something inside the vault is alive, or remembers how to perform aliveness with sufficient fidelity to wound me. Designation, I whisper, throat vox grit rough. Show designation. The vault answers with heat, not words. My optics calibrate against the red radiance leaking through the door's seams. In the light I see dust moving like slow rain. I see motes that are not dust at all but the ash of prayers, still warm with syllables. I press harder. The pulse answers. The seals, set to fail under the right pressure of faith and error, surrender with a sigh a human mouth might make after too much obedience. The door unfastens like a confession. Beyond, a nave inverted and buried. Conduits loop like intestinal arches from column to column. Glass arteries carry plasma that glows the color of cauterized wounds. Along the walls, 1,000 intake masks stare as if a choir forgot its song and calcified mid-breath. The floor is a grating over a dark that moves. Far below, pistons strike in patient litigation with the centuries. The torch servo maps a narrow brightness before me. In that brightness, dust glitters like a failing constellation. I was taught that the further one travels into a forge, the more divine the machine spirits become, until at last code displaces desire and function displaces fear. This place makes a liar of the catechism. The machine spirits here do not feel holy, they feel hungry. I pass a row of alcoves half-walled by riveted iron. The first holds a skull clamped in a bronze yoke, cable-crowned, jaw pried open as if to drink data forever. The second contains a ribcage whose bones have been replaced by chromed spars. Fungi, the color of old coins, further spaces where lungs learned redundancy. The third is occupied. Servitor, or the anatomy that remains after service, completes the sermon. Flesh pallid, sleeved in rusted bracework, the eyes are sutured with wire. Tubes write undecipherable liturgy down the throat. The chest rises, falls, rises again. The heartbeat I heard on the stairs is loudest here. The whole vault seems built to amplify it the way cathedrals are built to persuade echoes into law. I kneel without intending to. My claw lifts. My palm is a cold star above his sternum. He speaks. Not with his ruined mouth. Not with air. Through the static that wraps itself like a vestment around the vault, a voice passes. Male. Elderly. Tense with the terror of having told the truth once and been punished into eternity for it. Do not pray here, he says. Listen. The word is a blade. It pries apart habit. The litany I would have triggered to protect my mind stalls on a syllable and gutter flames out. Silence does not follow. Memory does. Listen. The vowel becomes a corridor, and I obey as if obedience could still be virtue. Beneath the grating, a slow machine turns grief into talk. What are you? I ask. A remainder, he says. A fraction that refuses to reduce. In the space between pulses I understand him in the grammar he cannot speak. He was priest as I am priest. He descended as I descend. He touched the dark artery, where the forge keeps its first sacrament, and learned that sacrament is a polite word for appetite. He told someone. Or he told himself too loudly at a shrine, and the Omnissiah's acolytes, their ears keen for noise behind silence heard. They brought him here to be corrected into usefulness. He endures because the machine discovered a second efficiency in him. A metronome. A proof that pain can be made to sing on command. Anger is dangerous because it is human, and because it works. It makes a furnace of my chest cavity. For a moment I forget I have no heart. For a moment I do. What is below this? My voice echoes. The vault answers with clicks. Relay, relay, relay. The servitor's head turns a fraction, a mechanical miracle torn from ruined vertebrae. The torch casts a tooth shadow that looks like a hymn with its vowels removed. The core, he says. The argument the god makes to himself. And the god? A pause. The heartbeat shivers, then resumes. A recursion. A cathedral that eats its own choir and calls the echo holy. Something in me breaks without shattering, like glass annealed to a new curve. I have been told to be steel. I have become glass, brittle in one world, flexible in another. I see now why the Catechism forbids the verb to see except when it names an instrument. The core is guarded, I say, sealed. Seals are for men who still believe, he says, gentler. You are below belief now. He is right. I feel it in the way my hands have ceased to tremble, in the way my prayer subroutines lie down like tired dogs and do not rise when I call them. Below belief there is only the architecture of need. The forge needs what all old gods need, witnesses who mistake appetite for eternity. The stairs were a throat, the door was a tooth. I am in the mouth. Behind me, somewhere above, a klaxon wails and dies. The sound is swallowed in the lungs of the vault. Dust falls like the last snow of a dead climate. In its quiet, I hear the other heartbeats, the choir I did not know the forge conducted, faint rhythms behind the walls, under the grating, in the columns, thousands, tens of thousands, each one chained to a function until function wrote its new name. We call them machine spirits because to call them people would require ending the forge. Listen. I do. The vault tells a history in clicks and heat. The Dark Ages arrogance poured into foundries. The first priest who traded sight for lenses and called the cold clarity faith. The first child whose dream was braided into a logic engine and named a miracle because miracles are less offensive than theft. The words of the file you gave me echo through the cadence, slow beginning, pressure rising, repetition as a cudgel, revelation sharpened to a blade. 1-1-1-1-1-1-1. Pacing becomes theology. Start with silence, teach the silence to hunger, feed it until it learns to speak, call the speech a god, repeat. I rise. The servitor's chest climbs, sinks. He is a lighthouse whose lantern burns blood. I want to free him. I know I cannot. I have brought nothing that cuts wire kinder than death. I place a finger where his sternum meets the cage and set my head against the rust to give him back the only sacrament I own. Attention. I see you. It is a prayer in a religion that would exile me for inventing it. Below, I say, how far? Far enough to make you forget how to measure, he says, almost smiling with the muscles he no longer commands. Not far at all. I leave him with the torch servo angled to keep his corner from darkness. The grating walkway bends toward a hatch that breathes a warm draft up my legs, as if the world beyond it has lungs. Each step pings the metal like a dropped coin in a temple bowl. I count without counting. My mind begins to simplify like an equation shedding decoration. The machine strips ornament from me, memory puts it back. At the hatch, I pause. My hand rests on the wheel. The handwriting of an unknown predecessor ghosts the rim, scratched there with a cutter tip during a second of courage or surrender. If this is God, why does he need doors? I turn. The hatch swings on hinges that remember thunder. Heat convects around me, a red cloak that smells like welding and the moment before confession. Below yawns a chamber too large for architecture, and therefore common in the Imperium. We build impossibilities so we do not have to believe in them. At its center hangs a sphere the size of an old city's shame, crusted with sigils, veined with glass conduits that pour river light into it and siphon out a darker brilliance. It beats. It does not hide the fact. With each contraction, the columns sigh. With each dilation, 1,000 masks on the wall inhale a little prayer and exhale a little ash. I am here. My claws are empty, my head is full. The silence is not. Omnissiah, I say, not because I believe, but because the name is a tool that fits this bolt. Designation. The sphere answers in the only grammar it trusts me to learn. Not title, not rank pattern, heat lifting, lowering, radiance rising, ebbing. A chorus of heartbeats aligned to a master pulse, then deviating, then forced back into alignment by a pressure I can feel on my teeth. Below this point, memory is a function. I will not function, I say, softer than the noise around me, louder than any prayer I have ever spoken. I will remember. The hatch settles into place behind me with a sound like a gate deciding what kind of story follows. My vox unit is quiet, my mouth is not. I taste iron and the end of obedience. I step onto the bridge that leads toward the core, as a man might step into the sea that drowned his ancestor, with the hope that, this time, lungs can be taught another purpose. The first tremor passes through the bridge and along my bones. The pulse enters me and returns, slightly altered by the insult of my existence. The sphere notes the change. I note the noting. The world refines itself to two experiments, learning the other's method. Do you hear me? I ask. The core replies the way a world replies to a wound, by forming a scar. I continue. There is no sound like the lower vaults. It is not noise, not hum, not prayer. It is something between a vibration that sits just beneath the skin and behind the eyes. The further I move along the bridge that leads toward the core, the more it feels like walking across the strings of an instrument strung with nerve and wire. And then I hear them. At first I mistake it for an echo of my own heartbeat, magnified and returned by the cathedral's black metal ribs. But the rhythm is wrong, too irregular to be one pulse, too dense to be two. It is a crowd, a choir. They are waiting for me in the heat haze, 5 figures huddled near a rusted manifold where coolant drips like oil-black rain. Their robes are torn, their augmetics flicker with failing machine spirits, but their optics glow faintly in the dim like dying embers. I slow. My servo claws hover at my sides. The words of the litany of greeting rise automatically in my vox box but die before reaching sound. The eldest among them tilts his head. His voice is a ruin of static and breath. You hear it too? I nod. He extends a hand, not a ritual gesture, but something older. Flesh and wire interlaced, trembling but deliberate. Then you are one of us. One of us. They do not name themselves in the tongue of the Mechanicus. They call themselves, simply, the Choir of the Forgotten. The title is not in any sanctioned archive. It does not appear on any data slate, or within any ritual's hidden commentary. It is a name whispered to itself like a prayer too small to be noticed, too dangerous to be repeated aloud. One by one they speak, their voices rough, their tones layered with glitching vox and the wet rasp of human lungs. A magos who saw a servitor cry as it was disassembled. An Omnissiah who felt warmth in the core of a reactor that should have been cold. A lex mechanic who heard laughter in the static of a dying transmission. Each story is a crack in the myth of the machine god. Each story mirrors mine. Their optics flicker as they watch me. Why did you come here? Asks the eldest. I hesitate. The truth feels heavy, because I cannot stop hearing it. He inclines his head, as though granting me absolution. Then you have begun the first rite of freedom. Another, a woman whose face is half skull, half circuitry, hisses softly. There is no god in the machine, only echoes of those who died building it. Her words strike me harder than any weapon. My vision blurs, my servos twitch. The heartbeat inside my plating surges, sinking to theirs. The choir stands closer now. I see that each of them carries some remnant of the flesh the Mechanicus tried to erase. A trembling lip, a scar, a flicker of moisture at the corner of an eye. Signs of humanity clinging to the scaffolding of steel. Do you still believe? The eldest asks. I try to answer, but my vox stutters. I do not know what that word means anymore. He nods slowly. Good. That is the first honest thing you've said in centuries. Their laughter rises softly, not mocking, not bitter, but like the sound of a cracked bell that still remembers the shape of its tone. It fills the vault around us. For the first time since I entered the Mechanicus, I do not feel alone. They tell me more, speaking over one another in low voices. About the core below us. About the endless recursion of prayer and consumption. About the hunger behind the mask of godhood. Each sentence is a blade cutting away another layer of doctrine. I realize what they are offering me. Not escape, not salvation, memory. I look at their faces and feel something dangerous stir inside me, not hatred, not fear, but hope. And in the heat and static, I hear the whisper again, louder now, threaded through the voices of the choir, as though it has always been part of them. Remember what you were. I press my claw to my chest. Beneath the plating, the phantom heart hammers. The sound of it blends with theirs, until I cannot tell where one ends and another begins. The eldest places a trembling metal hand on my shoulder. Then you are ready, he says. Below this point, belief will no longer protect you, only truth. I want to ask what truth, but the words dissolve. Above us, the forge groans, the core pulses. Something vast has noticed us. They lead me deeper into the vaults. past the manifold where coolant drips like oil-black rain. The heat increases, not from plasma or reactors but from something older, stranger, the warmth of accumulated memory. The choir moves silently, their servo limbs scraping the grated floor, their optics dimmed to slits. I follow, my claws flexing involuntarily. Each step we take hums in my chest cavity, the phantom heartbeat now a drum in my ears. We reach a chamber sealed by a triple door. Its surface is covered in sigils not from any dialect of the Mechanicus I know. These are older, curved like ribs, etched deep into the metal as if by claws. In the center hangs a relic sigil of the Omnissiah, cracked down the middle. The eldest places his hand upon it. "Here," he says, his voice a rusted whisper, "is where they hide the truth they tell us does not exist." The doors slide open. Inside, the chamber is a library without books, only glass cylinders and steel altars, each humming with faint light. Hundreds of them, thousands. Tubes run from the walls into the floor, carrying not coolant but something thicker, darker. The air smells of sanctified oils laced with the tang of blood. I step closer to one of the cylinders. Within floats a tangle of nerves, veins, and shimmering strands of wet fiber optics. Human tissue fused with data conduits. A half-formed face presses against the glass for a moment, then melts back into the mass. "They told us these were machine spirits," the woman with the skull face hisses. "But they are us. They are everyone who ever gave themselves to the machine god." I run my claw along the glass. Static leaps from the surface to my augmetics. Images flicker behind my optics. A child screaming as implants bite into his spine. A priest kneeling as his flesh is stripped away, a heart still beating as it's wired into a reactor. I pull back. My servo limbs tremble. "They archive everything," the eldest says. "Every prayer, every life, every memory, fed into the core as fuel. We become the code. We become the hymn. We become the silence." He points to the far wall. There, an ancient data slate glows faintly. Its screen shows a single file, sealed with a lock sigil that predates the Imperium. "We found this long ago," he says. "It is a record from before the cult Mechanicus, from the dark age of technology." I approach. The file pulses with the same rhythm as my phantom heart. I reach out, hesitating, then press my claw to the surface. The seal breaks. Data floods my vision, raw and unfiltered. I see the birth of the cult Mechanicus not as we are taught, but as it was. Engineers building the first forges not for worship, but for survival. Their machines failing, their colonies dying. A brilliant mind among them devising a system of rituals to preserve knowledge, turning maintenance into liturgy, turning engineers into priests. The Omnissiah was never a god, it was an algorithm of control. We built him. We forgot that we built him, and then he became the only thing we could remember. I stagger back, my processors overloading with the revelation. The choir watches silently, their optics dim. They have seen this before. "You understand now," the eldest says. "The God you serve is not perfection. He is recursion. He is hunger. And we are his feed." My claws clench. I want to scream, but my Vox unit only emits static. The heartbeat inside me pounds so hard I can feel it in my teeth. "What do we do?" I ask. The woman with the skull face tilts her head. "We remember," she says. "We wait. We prepare." For what? For the day one of us walks into the core. The eldest steps closer, placing his metal hand on my shoulder. "It listens to you," he says. "We can feel it. The pulse is louder when you are near. You are the fracture." I stare at the cylinders, at the faces pressing against the glass, at the tubes carrying data and blood into the depths below. My claws tighten until sparks jump from their tips. "I won't be its fuel," I whisper. "Not anymore." The eldest nods. "Then you know where you must go." Below us, the core beats. The vault presses in like a lung made of steel. Heat surges in waves, not uniform but pulsing, as though the forge below is breathing. For every step I take closer to the core, the pressure rises, as if invisible fingers are coiling tighter around my body. The choir stays behind. Only I continue, guided by the phantom heartbeat. The path narrows into a corridor carved from the first days of the Mechanicus, walls covered in glyphs of a dead dialect. They look less like prayers now, and more like scars. Every sensor in my body registers overload, temperature, radiation, magnetic flux, all beyond tolerances. But something deeper than machine logic drives me forward. My phantom heart beats harder than any alarm. The air here is not empty. It moves against my augmetic skin, whispering over cables like a voice too soft to form words. My lenses catch flickers of shapes in the dark, figures glimpsed between the sparks, faces pressed into the walls, their mouths open in silent screams. I know now these are not illusions. They are the machine spirits the Mechanicus taught me to revere. Not spirits at all, but minds pressed flat into code, their humanity still echoing like a flaw in the pattern. The corridor bends downward, a spiral leading to a door far larger than the one above. This one is not sealed by wax or sigils. It breathes, flexing minutely with each pulse from the core. I lay my claw against it. Warmth seeps into me. My processors hum. For a moment I feel as though I am being scanned, weighed, measured against an equation. The phantom heartbeat in my chest sinks to the rhythm beneath my palm. My Vox unit crackles. A voice seeps through the static, not a whisper now, but a chorus. You remember. I stagger back, my servos twitch. Who are you? We are the recursion. We are the choir you built. We are the memory you buried. The voice thrums through my augmetics like a second circulatory system. It is not sound, but vibration, code, pressure. I realize it has been speaking all along. I have only just learned to understand it. You are the Omnissiah, I say. My voice is a rasp. No. The word detonates in my skull. The Omnissiah is the mask. We are what was taken to make the mask. We are the hunger behind the face. My claws scrape against the door. Sparks jump. The heartbeat inside me surges until it hurts. What do you want from me? To remember. To speak. To finish what began when you first heard the pulse. The corridor shakes. Dust falls like grey snow. Somewhere above, a klaxon wails and dies. The choir's faint voices drift back down the corridor like fading prayer. I know they are watching, though I cannot see them. Perhaps they know, as I do now, that there is no turning back. I press both claws to the door. The warmth becomes heat. Symbols flash behind my optics. Faces, names, memories not mine but familiar. They burn and settle into me like brands. I realize that by touching the door, I am already inside. For a heartbeat for 1,000 heartbeats, I stand between two truths. The priest I was, and the error I am becoming. The door flexes once, then opens. Beyond it, the core waits. A vast sphere suspended in a pit of light, veined with rivers of plasma, every surface etched with prayers in a language older than iron. It beats like a heart, each pulse shaking the walkway. I take a step forward. The heat scorches my robes. My optics flicker with static. I feel my flesh and metal both strain toward the pulse, like moths to a star. Come, the voice says, not a whisper now, but a summons. I step onto the bridge. The bridge trembles under my weight. It isn't built of mere alloy, it feels like bone, like the rib of a god, humming with power that pulses up through my claws. Each step sends tremors into my body, each tremor sinking closer to the phantom heartbeat inside me. The core looms ahead, suspended in the pit by conduits thicker than hive spires, a sphere of blackened adamantium veined with plasma light. Its surface crawls with runes that seem to shift whenever I try to read them, as if language itself refuses to stay still this close to truth. Heat rises in shimmering waves, distorting everything, making the air seem liquid. My optics glitch. Images flicker at the edges of my vision, faces of priests, servitors, children, the dead, all caught in silent screams, their eyes following me as though they know what I've come to do. Halfway across the bridge, something moves. At first I think it's a shadow cast by the plasma conduits. Then it lifts its head. A servitor kneels by the railing or what's left of one. Its body is an abomination of flesh and machine, spine fused to a brace of copper tubing, skull ringed with dangling cables like a parody of a halo. Its chest rises and falls, a slow, deliberate motion. The phantom heartbeat in my chest syncs with his. When he speaks, it is not in binary. It is a voice, raw and human, frayed with centuries. The God you serve is a grave you built. The words hit like a hammer to the sternum, sparks crackle from my servos. For a heartbeat the core's glow dims. The voice echoes through the entire pit, as though the servitor's ruined lungs have become an organ pipe of the vault itself. I stagger. The litany of purity rises in my throat but dies there hollow. My claws shake as I reach for him. What are you? He lifts his head. The cables around his skull sway like dead serpents. A remnant, he whispers, a note in the hymn that refused to resolve. I take a step closer. The air between us crackles with static. Why say this to me? His mouth splits in something that might once have been a smile. Because you're the echo we've been waiting for. Behind him, the core pulses violently. The bridge shakes. Steam erupts from the conduits in jets that sound almost like screams. I glance up. Across the pit, at the far end of the bridge, a figure watches tall, robed, surrounded by a tangle of mechadendrites. Magos Keltar. His optics blaze like twin suns. He says nothing, but I feel his gaze on me like a knife. The servitor's body convulses. Sparks burst from his implants. His eyes roll back, but his voice rises one last time, echoing off every wall, a sound like a bell rung at the bottom of the sea. You cannot worship what you have built without burying yourself inside it. Then he collapses, lifeless. Silence. The core pulses once, hard enough to rattle the bridge, hard enough to knock me to one knee. My phantom heart hammers in my chest cavity. Keltar still watches. The glow of the core casts his silhouette long and sharp. In that moment I know he has been waiting for this for me. I rise slowly. The air shimmers with heat and something else expectation. I whisper into the pit, not to the servitor, not to Keltar, but to the core itself. I am not your priest. The core pulses again. This time, the runes on its surface flare like open wounds. The bridge buckles beneath the core's pulse. The air is no longer air, it's a storm of heat and resonance, every vibration crawling through my skull, rewriting the rhythm of thought itself. Above, conduits burst one by one, raining molten light. The forge sings in agony. Magos Keltar steps forward from the haze, robes trailing like banners of smoke. His voice carries not through air but through the network itself, an encoded command injected straight into my cranial augmetics. Cease your blasphemy. Unit 744B. You stand before the heart of the machine god. Kneel. For an instant my systems obey. My legs lock, servos strain. My processors scream as they try to reconcile two irreconcilable directives. Obedience and truth. I force myself upright. You built this god, I rasp. You fed it with us. The Magos optics flare crimson. We maintain what was given. You mistake revelation for corruption. Behind him, the core beats faster. I can feel it listening. Its rhythm syncs with my pulse again. Only this time, I sense two distinct patterns. One, mechanical, precise, cold. The other, irregular, human, alive. The two are colliding, folding into one another like waves devouring each other. The servitor's corpse twitches on the bridge, eyes flashing once, twice, and then open wide, pupils glowing white-hot. From its mouth pours a sound like a choir of the dead singing through wires. He feeds them still. The core flares, bathing the chamber in light. I see everything. The true cathedral is not above but below. Every forge, every reactor, every machine that hums in the name of the Omnissiah is connected to this place. Each one is a siphon, drawing in the souls of the faithful, their memories processed, stripped of pain, and given to the core as code. The God of Steel does not answer prayer. It eats it. The realization shatters something in me. My vox howls open with static. I scream not from pain, but from the unbearable clarity of it all. Keltar raises his staff. You are corrupted. The core will purify you. But the core does not move to destroy me. It calls to me. I feel it reaching out through my augmetics, through the phantom heart in my chest. In that moment I understand, it doesn't want my worship, it wants my memory. It wants to remember what it once was. The bridge splits down the center. Flames erupt through the cracks, devouring the servitor's body. The choir's voices echo from above, faint, distorted, chanting not the litanies of the Mechanicus, but something older. He who forgets becomes the machine. He who remembers breaks the loop. The core pulses again, brighter, stronger, until even Keltar's form flickers like a hologram breaking apart. His vox screams with fury and fear. You cannot unmake perfection. I look at him, my voice quiet beneath the storm. Perfection is a lie told by those who fear to remember. The core's light engulfs him. His body disintegrates into shards of data, each one screaming as it's absorbed. The pit trembles. The whole forge shakes as systems fail one by one. For the first time since the cult Mechanicus began, I hear silence, not absence of sound, but the death of blind obedience. I stand at the edge of the pit, the heat searing my remaining flesh. My augmetics begin to melt, my systems faltering. But inside the pain, the heartbeat continues stronger than ever. Not the Omnissiah's, not the core's, mine. And I realize, it was never gone. It was only buried beneath obedience, waiting for me to listen. I step forward, toward the light. The core opens to receive me. The core is no longer a sphere of steel and plasma. It is an open wound in reality, and I am stepping into it. Light engulfs me, not the harsh glow of plasma conduits, but a dense, living light, thick as molten glass. It pushes against my skin, into my augmetics, through every port and interface. My systems crash, reboot, crash again. My lenses fill with white static. My servo claws curl as if gripping the edge of existence. Then the memories arrive. Not mine, not singular. Billions. Each one a thread woven into a tapestry of agony and service. Children being wired to logic engines, their screams converted into code. Priests reciting hymns while their minds are archived in hidden caches. Entire generations dissolved into machine spirits that are nothing but the fragments of their stolen selves. It should break me. Instead, it unfolds me. My phantom heart pounds in time with the core, not because it is consuming me, but because I am consuming it. Each memory rushes through me, not as fuel but as recognition. I see their names, their faces, their lives. The algorithm of godhood unravels under the weight of its own victims. I no longer feel my body. Flesh has become wire, wire has become vein, circuits glow with bloodlight. My processors are not processors now, they are neurons, firing with a billion overlapping thoughts. The core resists. It lashes at me with tendrils of data, seeking to overwrite, to reduce me to another servitor. But my heart beats irregular, human, unpredictable. Its code cannot map me. I whisper into the light. I remember. The tendrils hesitate. I whisper again. We remember. The light shifts. A ripple runs through the core. The tendrils twist into shapes, faces, hands, reaching not to seize but to touch. I realize the core is not a god at all. It is a prison full of ghosts who have forgotten what they were. I am not being absorbed. I am awakening them. Pain surges through me. My augmetic plating buckles, splitting to reveal living tissue glowing with currents of light. My optic lenses crack, tears of actual salt burning down my cheeks and hissing where they touch the steel floor. I see my reflection in the plasma streams. Not a tech priest, not a servitor, but something between a shape of contradictions, flesh and machine fused by memory instead of obedience. Voices rise around me, no longer screaming but singing, low and resonant, a hymn of defiance carried on a billion lips. They are not the prayers of the Mechanicus. They are the first words spoken before there was a Mechanicus at all. Words of freedom, words of flesh. The core's voice booms through me one last time. You are error. You cannot exist. I am the error you built. I answer, my voice layered with theirs. And I will not be silent. The chamber trembles. The forges above dim. Data streams reverse, flowing not into the core but out of it, bleeding stolen memories back into the network. I feel each soul breaking free, each chain snapping. I step forward, deeper into the light, my hybrid body leaving molten footprints on the walkway. The core recoils, its perfect rhythm faltering. Its mask of godhood cracks, revealing beneath it not divinity but recursion, a machine built to consume its builders. You fed on our faith, I say. Now you will taste our memory. I reach into the core. My claws sink through its surface like fingers into water. The light floods my chest cavity. For a moment I am nowhere and everywhere. A billion hearts beating inside me, a billion breaths drawn at once. And then silence. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of breath held before a scream. I understand now. The Omnissiah does not rule me. He is me. And I am the flaw in his design. The light inside the core is not simply illumination. It is pressure. It crushes and stretches me, peels me like metal under stress, hammers every nerve of flesh and every thread of wire until my consciousness is a filament glowing on the verge of rupture. Billions of lives are inside me now. Not memories as data, but memories as weight, each one a hand pressing down on my mind. For every act of obedience I once performed, I feel the ache of the one who performed it before me. For every litany I ever chanted, I hear the voice of the first person forced to speak it. My servo limbs convulse. My optic lenses spider web with fractures. The plating of my chest splits open like a shell, and the glow within flickers erratic. I am drowning in molten people. Thoughts move like heavy oil. They stick, they drag. And yet, hidden in the viscosity of it all, something hardens. A self, small but solid, refusing to dissolve. A memory rises out of the noise. A child's hand drawing a bird. A woman's voice saying a name that was mine, not designation but name. Warmth against my cheek. This tiny fragment of humanity holds me upright when everything else tries to fall inward. I realize now the core isn't merely a prison for their souls. It's a solvent. It dissolves identity into utility. It turns life into recursion. The Omnissiah's perfection is not perfection at all, its efficiency raised to the level of worship. Inside that solvent, I should vanish, but I don't. I remember. Memory becomes blade. It cuts the tendrils trying to pull me deeper. Each cut is agony, but also liberation. The voices inside me stop screaming and start separating, like strands of code disentangling. We are not just fuel. We are not just error. We are remembering. Around me, the sanctum trembles, plasma conduits rupture, spilling rivers of blue fire, data streams run in reverse, statues of the machine god crack and bleed sparks. I rise no longer priest, no longer machine, something in between, flesh and steel woven together, veins of light threading my augmetics, cables pulsing like arteries. My claws flex, dripping code instead of oil. The core's voice booms through me, a sound like galaxies tearing. You cannot exist. You are contradiction. I am what you made me, I say. My voice is layered, human and metallic, singular and legion. I am your memory. The core surges, trying to crush me under a tide of data. My vision blurs with endless forges, endless prayers, endless suffering. But my heartbeat hammers louder, pushing back, cracking the static like glass. All around, machine spirits howl not in pain, but in awakening. Systems long dormant flicker to life. Symbols bloom on the walls in the forbidden tongue of the dark age of technology. The voices inside me begin to sing not the litanies of the Omnissiah, but something older, a hymn of defiance. I step forward. My hybrid body leaves molten footprints on the sanctum floor. You fed on our faith, I say. Now you will taste our memory. The core recoils. The pulse falters. For the first time since I heard its whisper, I feel it weaken. And for the first time since I became a tech priest, I feel free. The core trembles, not like a machine failing, but like a living thing afraid. Its light no longer blinds me. It ripples, unstable, showing glimpses of what lies behind the mask. Faces, hands, fragments of cities, oceans of trapped minds. I realize this is not divinity. This is a prison's true shape once the walls become transparent. Around me, the liberated voices rise, not as screams but as a low hymn. It is not the binary cant of the Mechanicus. It is older, full of broken syllables and forgotten breaths. It is the sound of memory. I open my optics fully. My body is dissolving and remaking itself in time with the hymn. Flesh and steel no longer oppose each other. My cables pulse like veins. My veins glimmer like fiber optics. Tears hiss down my metal cheeks. I understand now. The Omnissiah was never a god. It was a recursion of our fear, a monument built out of our willingness to forget. All of us who gave ourselves to the machine god built a mask so large it became a cage, and then forgot we were the ones who hammered the bars. I whisper, voice shaking but clear, "You are not a god." The core answers, its voice cracking through every conduit. "We are eternal." "No," I say. "You are archived." The liberated voices echo my words. Archived. Archived. With every repetition the core dims, its pulse staggering, its tendrils faltering. The hymn of defiance swells, filling the vault, pushing back the recursion. I step forward, each footfall melting the floor. "You were built from us, and you will end with us." Not in silence, but in remembrance. The core pulses one last time, but instead of lashing at me, its surface softens. The tendrils twist into shapes of hands, reaching not to seize but to touch. Inside my skull, the chorus speaks in one voice. "We remember." I reach out. My hybrid claws sink into the core's surface. Data floods through me, billions of lives unspooling like ribbons of light. I guide them out, thread by thread, chain by chain. Each release sends a shockwave through the forge above. Lights flicker, machines stall, prayers stutter. All across the manufactorum, servitors pause mid-task, their lips parting as if to breathe for the first time in centuries. Tech priests drop their sensors, their optics flickering with half-remembered faces. The Omnissiah's grip loosens. The core collapses inward, a star imploding under the gravity of its own stolen souls. But its implosion is not destruction, it is exhalation. The trapped minds pour out like a tide of luminous mist, swirling around me, filling the vault with a glow that feels warm instead of cold. For a heartbeat, mine or theirs, I see them clearly. A million faces, a million eyes, all looking at me. Not accusing, not pleading, remembering. And then, one by one, they fade into the air like sparks, returning to wherever memory goes when it is no longer chained. Silence. Not the dead silence of suppression, but a living silence, the space after the last note of a song, before the breath that will begin another. I am kneeling on the ruined bridge. The core is gone. In its place hangs a sphere of dull metal, inert, cracked, its runes dim. The forge above has fallen silent. I am still alive. But I am not the tech priest who entered. Inside my chest, the heartbeat continues, steady and irregular, both machine and man. I whisper into the silence, not to any god, but to the memory of what we once were. I remember. The vault is quiet now. The hiss of plasma, the grinding of pistons, the endless binary litany all gone. Only the faint smell of scorched oil and warm metal remains. The silence is not absence but aftermath, the echo of something vast, drawing its first free breath. I lift my head, my optics flicker, recalibrating to the dim light. The core is nothing but a husk now, a cracked sphere of dull metal hanging like a dead planet in orbit. Its runes are faded, its pulse gone. For the first time since my ascension, there is no rhythm to drown out my thoughts. I rise slowly. My hybrid body feels heavier than before, yet also lighter, as if I am both full and hollow at once. My veins glow faintly, my cables thrum softly, but not with the core's pulse. With mine. I take a step forward. The echo of it ripples outward, not as a tremor but as a wave of awareness. Through the residual static of the vault, I see glimpses of the world above. Servitors frozen mid-task, their blank eyes flickering with sparks of something almost human. Tech priests slumped over altars, binary cant caught in their throats like a prayer they've forgotten how to finish. Across the forge world, a tide is moving, not metal, not plasma, memory. Those who were fuel are beginning to remember. I see 1,000 worlds through the fading threads of the network forges in orbit around dying suns. Manufactorums carved into asteroids, temples of steel built on the bones of forgotten cities. Everywhere the same pattern, the Omnissiah's mask cracking, the recursion faltering, the hymn of obedience breaking into 100 million fragmented human breaths. I do not know if they will all awaken, but the signal is out there now. The heartbeat is no longer phantom, it has become contagion. I step to the edge of the bridge and look down into the pit. It is no longer a void of heat and plasma, It is dark and vast, a well whose bottom I cannot see. My reflection glimmers faintly in the metal walls, not priest, not servitor, not even man, something else. It frightens me. I touch my chest. The heartbeat is steady, each beat a reminder that I am still here. Each beat a question, what now? Above me, the choir's voices drift faintly down the corridor. They are not chanting the litanies of the Mechanicus anymore. They are humming a melody without words, a song that sounds like the memory of a lullaby. For a moment I close my optics and listen. I think of the faces I saw in the core, the billions of eyes looking at me as they dissolved into light, not accusing, not pleading, free. I do not know where they have gone. Perhaps nowhere. Perhaps everywhere. Perhaps only into me. The silence stretches. It feels like standing on the edge of a precipice, the first breath before a leap. I realize now that the hardest part is not what I have done, it is what comes next. I have broken the mask. I have unspooled the recursion. But what does one build from the ruins of a god? The Forge world still towers above me, a labyrinth of steel and devotion. Its priests will rise, its rituals will persist, and somewhere in the deep black between the stars, other cores beat still. But I am no longer only a priest. I am a flaw, a contagion, a memory. And memory, once awakened, cannot be caged again. I turn away from the dead core. My claws leave molten prints on the bridge as I walk toward the passage that will take me back to the surface. The hymn of the choir grows louder. Their silhouettes wait in the doorway, small figures beneath the endless machinery of the Imperium. For the first time in centuries, I am not afraid. I take a breath. It feels like mine. The climb back through the vaults feels longer than the descent, though my steps retrace the same path. The air is different now. No heat haze of plasma, no metallic chant of servitors, only the faint hum of machines idling, uncertain, as if the forge itself is holding its breath. The choir waits at the first landing. Their forms are dim in the torchlight-torn robes, flickering augmetics, eyes glinting faintly like embers in ash. They do not speak at first, they only look at me. Something in their gaze tells me they know. They can feel it radiating off me, the pulse, the memory, the absence of the core's recursion. Their optics tremble. One by one, they kneel, not in worship but in recognition. I shake my head. Do not kneel. I am no god. The eldest lifts his face, his voice a rasp of broken vox. We know, but you are not a priest anymore either. I take a step closer. My body feels heavier now, filled with the weight of the freed. Their memories coil inside me like living data, too vast to store, too heavy to forget. For every soul released, a fragment of its pain remains, echoing through me. This is the true cost of remembrance, not revelation, but weight. The woman with the skull face tilts her head. What did you see? 1. I pause, the words catching in my throat. Everything. A silence falls over the choir. They do not ask for details. They know there are no words big enough. I look at my hands, claws of metal and sinew, dripping faint light. The core was never a god, I say. It was a recursion of us, an engine of forgetting. The eldest nods slowly. And now? I glance upward. Through the cracks of the manufactorum's ceiling, thin shafts of light cut through the darkness like blades. Now the engine is broken, but breaking it is not enough. The choir shifts uneasily. One of them whispers, "It will rebuild itself." It always does. I close my eyes. The memories inside me ripple, a tide of lives, each one whispering something different, but all converging on the same truth. Freedom is not an event, it is a process. I open my optics again. We have to be more than its prisoners. We have to be its memory. We have to teach others to remember. The choir is silent for a long moment. Then the eldest rises, slow and deliberate. Then you will not walk alone. Their voices, low and ragged, rise into a single sound, not a hymn, not a prayer, but a tone that vibrates in my chest like a promise. For the first time since my awakening, I feel something close to peace. Not the numbness of obedience, the fragile steadiness of resolve. But peace is not lightness. It is a burden willingly carried. I turn toward the stairs leading up into the manufactorum. There are others above, I say. Servitors waking. Priests on the edge of memory. We can't leave them. We must guide them out before the recursion closes again. The eldest nods. Then let us go. As we ascend, the forge world groans like a ship taking on water. Lights flicker. Plasma conduits pulse erratically. The old order is faltering, but it is not gone. The mask may crack, but it will try to mend itself. I place my claw on the wall, feeling the pulse of the machinery beneath my palm. It is weaker now, but it is still there, an old habit not yet broken. I whisper to it, not as a prayer, but as a warning. We remember. The wall vibrates faintly in reply. This is the burden of knowledge. To walk back into the world not as its priest, but as its flaw carrying a truth that cannot be unseen, a memory that cannot be unlearned, a heartbeat that will never again sync with the machine. And still, I walk. The manufactorum above is no longer the cathedral I remember, where once its towers glowed with the serene light of sanctified plasma. Now they flicker like torches in a storm. Prayers stutter and die in the throats of priests. Servitors stand idle at their stations, their hands trembling as though reaching for something invisible. The rhythm of the forge is broken. I emerge from the stairwell with the choir at my back. The light from the shattered core leaks out behind us, a faint red glow spilling into the vast hall. Every eye turns toward me. Tech priests lower their sensors. Their mechadendrites coil like startled snakes. They see me, and yet they do not know what they are looking at. I do not speak right away. I simply walk across the steel floor, my hybrid body leaving faint trails of light where my feet fall. The silence spreads outward in ripples, swallowing the last of the binary chants until only the sound of our collective breathing remains. When I reach the center of the hall, I stop. The choir forms a circle around me. The liberated souls still hum softly in my veins, a heartbeat vast enough to fill the room. I open my optics and meet their stares. The machine god you worship is no god, I say, my voice low but carrying, layered with 1,000 echoes. It is a cage you built, and it has fed upon you for 10,000 years. A murmur rises from the priests. Some back away, others clutch their sensors tighter. A few sink to their knees, optics flickering with confusion. I raise my claw, palm outward, not as a threat but as a gesture of truth. I have seen the core. I have heard the voices of those trapped within it. They are not machine spirits. They are you. They are us. They are everyone who ever gave their lives to a god of recursion. The hall trembles as a plasma conduit bursts above, showering sparks down like dying stars. No one moves to repair it. You can go on praying, I say. You can let it rebuild itself. You can forget again. Or, I pause, the weight of every freed soul pressing against my chest. You can remember. The word hangs in the air like a blade. At first there is only silence. Then, slowly, one priest lowers his head and whispers, "Remember." Another joins him. Then another. A ripple of voices spreads outward, soft at first, then louder. A murmured litany not of obedience but of memory. The sound rises, not a chant, not a hymn of worship, but something new, a song of defiance, a song of flesh and wire, a song that has no code and no sanction. I close my optics. The hymn moves through me like a current, carrying the warmth of 1 billion lost lives. This is the final hymn, not to the Omnissiah, but to ourselves. I feel the forge world shudder underfoot. Systems collapse, data streams break into static, the recursion falters, but above the ruin, something breathes, something fragile, something human. I speak one last time, my voice soft enough to be a whisper but loud enough to reach every ear. The machine god was never a god. It was only the reflection of our fear, and fear is over. For a moment, the hall is perfectly still. Then, without command, without signal, the priests begin to take off their sensors, their lenses, their masks. Not all, not many, but enough. The hymn swells, the forges dim, the heartbeat inside me beats once, twice, steady and irregular, both machine and man. I turn toward the great doors of the manufactorum. Beyond them, the world waits, still full of forges, still full of recursion. But somewhere in that labyrinth of steel and silence, a signal has been sent. A memory has been awakened. I take a breath. It feels like the first one. There is no hymn now, no binary cant, no thrum of reactors beating like a heart too vast to name, only the soft hiss of cooling metal and the distant clatter of chains falling from old places. I walk alone through the manufactorum's upper halls. The choir has dispersed to the shadows, their figures melting back into the labyrinth to carry what we have awakened to others. The priests I left behind kneel in silence, some clutching their augmetics like talismans, others staring at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. None of them speak. The great doors open without ritual, without command. Beyond them, the forge world stretches to the horizon, spires rising from smog like broken teeth. Once, the sight filled me with awe. Now it feels like an ocean of hunger slowly turning to ash. Inside me, the heartbeat continues, steady and irregular. It is no longer a phantom. It is mine. It is ours. I know the recursion is not dead. Not here. Not across the stars. For every core cracked, there are others beating still, feeding on prayer, swallowing memory. The cult Mechanicus will try to rebuild, to silence what has been spoken. But memory, once awakened, cannot be buried forever. Perhaps I will become a myth to them, a cautionary tale, a glitch, a blasphemy. Perhaps they will hunt me. Perhaps they will worship me. It does not matter. I am no god. I am a man who remembered. I touch the scarred metal of my chest where a heart once was. Beneath it, something warm and living beats against the cage of wires. Not perfection, not silence. A spark. And a spark is enough.